Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 3, no presentations.
Nope.
Nice. Directors, Communications, Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So last spring, we announced the data relative to AP participation. That is 526 total exams taken by 257 tested students. I felt it was important to come back to you and round out this picture by presenting the data on really what is the most important piece of this, and that's the qualifying scores from the 2016 AP testing. There were 125 scores of 3+, so that's 3, 4, or 5, remembering that 1 is the lowest and 5 is the top. The percentage of students with scores of 3+ was 48.6. The documents included in the handout really do give the full picture. The first set of them, and you can peruse them at your discretion, is the 5-year school score summary showing 5 years of the data on school, state, and global levels. We plan to address these recent dips in qualifying scores over the past few years by reinstituting the Saturday study sessions throughout the year. We used to have them as part of our MIMSI grant. They were funded by the grant, and then when the grant dried up, we stopped. But we feel that this really would be the difference in gaining more qualifying scores for our students. So the first page has, if you want to take a look at that, the 5-year school score summary. 257 students, 526 exams, 125 students with scores of 3+, 48.6. That's where I got the data from. And you can match that against Massachusetts and the global AP scores. And if you're so inclined, you can take a walk through the scores over the last 5-year span of every single discrete exam that is offered at Marlborough High School. I wanted to also give you another picture. The second report is a demographic summary, and I think this is also really telling. There's only a few pages of this. It's called the School Summary by Student Demographics. And on the first page, we have the schools totaled by fee reduction. So fee reduction is for low-income students who qualified for free and/or reduced lunch. So of the students who took the exams, 425 did not have a fee reduction, but here's the interesting piece. The mean score for those without the fee reduction was 2.40. And on the next page, those who do qualify for option 1, which is the option designated for low-income students, 101 students, and the mean score was exactly the same, 2.40. So I think many conclusions can be drawn from this as the high school staff takes a look at the data. What it tells me is that we are doing a fine job of reaching all of our students, that there is not a disparity there in terms of the mean score, that they're achieving at the same levels. So I wanted to make sure I rounded out the AP data by giving you the most recent set. Art Award. It is our pleasure to share the news that Timothy Shaves, art teacher at Whitcomb School, is being honored at the upcoming Massachusetts Art Education Association Conference with the award of Exceptional New Art Educator of the Year. This is quite an accomplishment for Tim. This conference will take place at Lesley University. It will include an award ceremony on Saturday, November 12th. A little bit about Tim. He serves the students at Whitcomb in so many ways, not just in the classroom as an art teacher, but also outside of the classroom in numerous ways. He's here tonight to accept our congratulation and to also give us a glimpse into the integration of art into STEAM, so it's very timely. Tim?
Thank you, Maureen, for the congratulations. I've been teaching, this is my 3rd year going and teaching in the art department at Whitcomb, and I've definitely been overwhelmed by the constant support of the arts in Marlborough Public Schools. And that's why I'm happy to say that Whitcomb has fully integrated into a STEAM from a STEM. The A emphasizing creative thinking, design, and innovation. This last year, to introduce this, we, as an art department, got a lot of time to go into other teachers' classrooms, other core teacher classrooms, and help them create some project-based learning in their curriculum. So we went in, for example, to an 8th grade science class and helped them to demonstrate their knowledge of the Newton's 3 laws of motion through stop-motion animation. So we're making some cross-discipline connections there, helping them deliver it in a more experiential way. And then this year, we were actually, in our change of schedule, we're given time to meet with all of our arts, technology, and engineering departments. We're given time to meet with all the core teachers. And now we have time to think and collaborate and find interdisciplinary connections between all of our curriculums to create some innovative lessons that we're going to be teaching to our students this year. I know in 5th grade, for example, they are introducing project-based learning to all of the new 5th graders coming in. Right now, for example, they're learning about Vikings, and in the art department, we're going to be creating a metal reprise based around the art in that era. And then in 6th and through 8th grade, they're going to be creating at least 2 STEAM projects in every single team throughout the year, so 1 per trimester. Right now we're working with the teams we'll be seeing next semester to create these projects so we can deliver them right after the winter vacation. And then right now what we're kind of doing in 6th grade is they're learning about geography, and then in art they are learning how to use the gridding system to create their own maps of the world. And then in 8th grade, we just gave them a survey asking them about issues around the world that they feel are important, so that they can kind of deliver us feedback of what they might think would be a great project for STEAM, and then maybe connect those issues back with things that we're learning in class. So right now they're just starting. We've only had a couple months to get this started. It's definitely new. It's awesome that we have this great time to collaborate with teachers we've never seen before. And I'm really excited about these new innovative lessons we're going to be delivering soon. So, any questions?
Any questions from the committee? Ms. Bodenhedger.
Good?
Congratulations
Thank you.
on your award.
Thank you.
Christy Oliver, I know, is a big person at the state level, and when she left, I thought no one would realize that we had fabulous art teachers, so it's great to see
She is
that.
actually my mentor at UMass Dartmouth, so that makes sense.
She was great. But this is great, and it's helpful for us to, for me at least, to hear how you're integrating, because I keep hearing a lot about STEAM and what it's going to look like, but to actually hear about some of the projects is really great. So will you guys, once some of the projects, with the STEM, we were oftentimes invited to presentations of when some of the projects are going to be unveiled. Will we have the opportunity to see some of the STEAM?
Hopefully, right now we are in the midst of creating the STEAM projects for the following semesters, but hopefully we'll have something similar to the presentations for STEM as well.
Awesome.
So,
Great. Congratulations. Yeah,
Thank you.
congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Assabet presentations and tours. All 8th grade students will participate in a presentation by Cindy Zomar. She's the Director of Admissions at Assabet on November 4th, followed by a presentation highlighting the offerings of Marlborough High School, coordinated by Sharon Buckley, MPS Director of Guidance. We had a lot of discussion about this. We talked deeply and reflected, and the decision is that we will not be busing interested students to Assabet on school time this year, but we will provide interested 8th graders and their parents with a page of information with numbers to call, and we will provide a few days. We're hoping that many of them would go over at the same time to tour the school with a written notice, and Cindy and Sharon will jointly craft this notice, suggesting times as well as saying that the students are fully excused by Principal Daniels, and this will be honored by the middle school. Our goal is always to provide our students with options for them and their families to make an informed decision, but at the same time, we want to minimize a pervasive disruption for students and staff. So we felt that this was the most plausible solution to this issue, and everyone seems, Cindy and all seem pleased with the decision. Our Richer Wednesday walks, celebrating the last Wednesday walk of this year, took place on Wednesday, October 5th, and Richer students and parents were accompanied by Jake, the Worcester Braveheart mascot, on their brisk walk to Richer Elementary School. Joining the walkers was Francis Hurley, the president of the Metro West Boys and Girls Club and chair of the Community Benefits Advisory Committee of the Marlborough Hospital. At this event, Mr. Hurley and Assistant Principal Scazzo were both interviewed at Richer Elementary School for a UMass Community Benefit Program video. Hurley shared his commitment to community outreach programs that promote wellness and health, while Mr. Scazzo applauded the enthusiastic students and families who have participated in these Wednesday walks. Middlesex Partnerships for Youth School Safety Summit was held on August 6th at Assabet. The theme was Enhancing School Safety by Building Resilience, discussing ways in which educators and law enforcement officials can respond to adolescents who experience trauma. Guidance Director Sharon Buckley, Whitcomb AP Rick Lucina, Whitcomb teacher Todd Turcott, and school committee member Michelle Boden-Hedinger were in attendance. Many of the initiatives that we currently have underway, such as the DBT training and other social emotional centered topics that Ms. Geary has brought to our district's forefront, were validated in this session. Walkthroughs with the principals. One of the action steps to achieve my student learning goal is to accompany principals and directors on walkthroughs every month with a specific look for. And it's also a chance for us jointly to carve out some time dedicated for teaching and learning topics. I've started the first round. Today, I went through Kane and Jarrick, the other day through the high school. I was accompanied with by the HR director, Patty Brown. She is seeking to understand the culture and the philosophy of the district. If she's going to be in charge of recruiting folks, it is important for her to get a hands-on look at the building and get to know some of the players. The look for this time was directed to the goal number 3 of creating a comprehensive 3-year technology plan. And that is what we looked at. It was a very interesting round of walkthroughs. And finally, tonight, we have some guests with us. Marlborough Public Schools received an invitation from the MHS STEM Early College High School for the students to attend the President's Youth Town Hall meeting in North Carolina. This took place during the day on Tuesday, October 11th at A&T State University in Greensboro, North Carolina. It aired that same night at 10 o'clock on ESPN, and I know some of us watched it. Accompanying STEM director Dan Riley was Aliyah Nisbet, who is a current junior and honors level student. She's pursuing an early college pathway in engineering. She is currently scheduled to complete 2 college level writing courses and 1 CT engineering course during this school year. Aliyah has also participated in internships at Raytheon and Hologic through the YCC program. So I'd like to introduce Dan Riley, who is the head of our STEM program, who will also introduce Aliyah.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Grulich, School Committee, Mayor Vision. Thank you for having us tonight. This invitation is just another wonderful tribute to the hard work that's gone into our STEM innovative programming here in Marlborough Public Schools. And I want to highlight a couple other things. Mrs. Grulich already pointed out a few of the reasons why we asked Aliyah to participate in this, what I would call a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to meet the President of the United States. In addition to being an honors student, a member of the National Honor Society, Aliyah not only represents the best in our student body academically, but she's also a leader in many different ways. She's been a member of our STEM Early College High School program since the very beginning. since 6th grade. And so she is in her 6th year of early college high school. As Mrs. Grulich pointed out, she's participating in college-level coursework. She's done internships at not one, but 2 major companies here in the Marlborough community, both Raytheon and Hologic. There is not a student that was more deserving of this opportunity. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaliyah so she can share a few of the things that she took away from this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. On Tuesday, October 11th, I was able to attend the conversation with the president with Mr. Riley in Greensboro, North Carolina. President Obama's student forum had impacted me in a tremendous amount of ways. It was an outstanding once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to hear President Obama speak about today's youth and education. One particular aspect Mr. Obama spoke about was how difficult it can be being a single parent and raising children on their own. Coming from a family whose mother only raised her by herself, I understand how challenging things may get and the sacrifices that have to be made. I was truly inspired by the dedication by President Obama in proving that anyone can attain their aspirations and overcome their hardships. As a junior in high school, I've begun my journey looking at colleges. The STEM program has opened my eyes to a possible career in biomedical engineering. Being in STEM has provided me with tremendous opportunities such as work-based learning, internships with Raytheon, Quinsigamond Community College, early pathway careers, and various communication skills. I would not be able to participate in these wonderful experiences without the guidance of teachers and administration at Marlborough Public Schools. Overall, the greatest impact that I received from this experience highlighted that making a difference in this world is most important because we are the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
Questions for the committee? Ms. Hennessy.
Actually, more of a comment than a question, but I have to say it was really quite thrilling to be watching you all on TV and to know that we knew you and that you guys were there having that experience because, as you pointed out, once in a lifetime experience. And for the students to have an opportunity to put a question out and have a conversation kind of back and forth about it was really amazing to watch. And I have to say, it kind of gave you a tingle knowing that someone from Marlborough was there, you know, and really highlighting what a wonderful program we have and what an incredible district that we have here, where I think a number of us have said it's kind of like that gem that really doesn't always get shown quite so much. And here was a perfect opportunity. And it was great to have you all down there. And thank you, because you, through all of your hard work, you know, had the deserved place of being there, but you presented well, I'm sure. And Dan, for everything that you've done, it was amazing and exciting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other committee members? Congratulations. Thank you very much for
Thank you,
coming
Leah.
tonight. Good?
Are there any questions on my report before we?
The only quick comment or question is when you had mentioned about the ASVET opportunity. I have to say that I had just heard through some community members that were really pleased because Sharon Buckley had been doing a great job of outreach to the IC community.
Correct.
And I did want to mention that only because I think it's making sure that we as a community are providing all of those opportunities and forums. And I really am quite appreciative that Sharon is working hard on extending that invitation so that all of the students at IC really have the opportunities laid out appropriately. And I think she's done a fabulous job of trying to make sure that all of the information is there and presented about what the Marlborough High School has to offer for those students, and I wanted to make sure that that was acknowledged because she's done a great job.
Thank you.
Anything else? Moving on.
Moving on to the Executive Director of Primary and Elementary Education's report, Mary Murphy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry, when I saw her, I was looking at a kindergartner. She got to me. I just wanted to update on the 2016-17 Professional Development Days. I wanted to make sure that everyone understood the plan for the year and that there was a vision, that we did not have a series of just isolated events being scheduled throughout the year, that the year for PD began day one when the teachers came, and Superintendent Grulich had made arrangements for all teachers to get the Engaging Students with Poverty book, and we had our keynote speaker, John Emerald. And along those lines, throughout the year, we've planned a series of different events. On October 11th, and you received the grid, which was very brief because we, for the most part, scheduled everyone to be someplace. And Dr. Kerbel will speak a little bit about the Rebus training that happened, which was focused on instruction. But we worked as a team as well. I have to say that one of the sessions that the elementary teachers did was by Jessica Minahan in Practical Strategies for Supporting Students with Challenging or Anxiety-Related Behaviors, which they all loved. And those arrangements were made last year by Ms. Gary. And so it has been a team effort, so we have to say that. Moving forward, we will continue to focus on instruction in January, but we're also going to have some choice events happening in November, and also the opportunity for teachers to meet together, structured with some principals, assistant principals, teacher leaders, supervisors, having conversations about what they've been learning during these days and how they're applying them in the classrooms. So that's just a general overview. Also on October 11th, all the elementary principals and assistant principals had their own training. And that was by the Wilson Language Program, and that was on foundations, so that they knew what to look for when they walked into a classroom and saw foundations being instructed. How to know that teachers were being fidelity to the program, and when to know when they need to have a conversation and what that would look like. So we just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that not only were teachers being trained, but administrators were being trained as well. So thank you. Questions?
Questions from the committee? Senesi.
That's for foundations.
okay.
Yeah, I did that.
So, quick question.
Yeah.
With the change of STEM to STEAM, and obviously, as Mr. Shapes just was
Yeah.
speaking about, will there be PD that's being planned for some of the time coming up to allow for that time and collaboration to help to bring all of the folks up to speed, since obviously there are different levels of knowledge base, of project-based learning, all of that?
There's a couple of different, I'm sure that Mr. Daniels has some ideas. There's also something that Dr. Kerbel, Dan Riley, a number of us, we invited Mr. Daniels as well. There's a combination of some online training as well that we can do for them, and we just found a new resource, so we're pretty excited about. I don't want to give too much information until we truly commit and decide. Mr. Bergeron's going to be there as well to make sure that it's something that we all support. But there's multiple layers, of course. We all need to be moving in the same direction, but under the same vision.
Okay. I guess whenever you guys get a plan of that, that would be helpful to get that insight then.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The Executive Director of Secondary Education, Dr. Kerbel.
Thank you. I just want to say before I go into my report, I think it's quite amazing that you have a night in which you honor the teacher for being the Art Teacher of the Year, and then you have a student that meets the President of the United States. I mean, you gotta relish that. Those are wonderful opportunities. There's another person, Mark Corbel. I'm not saying my name in a weird way, but it sounds alike. But Mark is works at the Whitcomb School, is the engineer teacher. He's also the president of the Mass Tech organization. So once again, you have another staff member stepping up and representing Marlborough. I think it's quite the thing. So my report, I'm going to talk about three things. I'm going to talk about the student support team. I'll talk about our administrative quarterly meeting. And I'll talk a little bit about October 11th and try not to repeat what Mary said. So if you think of it this way, our teachers are working with students. If they have challenges or students need specific help, they can go to our District Curriculum Accommodation Plan, which is, we call it DCAP, to get ideas and strategies to use with students in class. If teachers need extra help or extra support, then what they can do is they can fill out a referral and then work with a group of teachers and administrators, and that's called our school support team. It used to be the instructional support team, but the name has been changed, and the process forms have been updated, which you received a copy of the forms. So what we would like to do, and I want parents who are listening to hear this, because it's very important, that if students are struggling in class, parents should talk to teachers about how the student is doing, and instead of saying maybe the student needs to be tested for special education, can say, have you gone through the student support team process? SST. Parents, ask your teacher, has my son, and have you gone through the SST process? Because that is the best way to help students. If we go through that process and then the team decides that, well, maybe the student needs to be referred for special ed because we suspect a disability, then they can refer that student to for special education testing. Next thing I want to talk about is the administrative quarterly meeting, which really leads into October 11th. We had, as we were thinking about our professional development and collaboration with Heather and Mary and Maureen and Mike, so we talked about an organization that come in and can help our teachers in terms of instructional strategies that they can use in class. So we contacted and have been working with Rebus Associates. So at the quarterly meeting, all of our principals, assistant principals, and other administrators learned about the kind of training that was going to take place on October 11th. One of the key elements of that is a follow-up to the training, and that is developing a cohort of our teachers, 15, who will be trained to provide workshops and professional development to our teachers over the next coming years. I'll talk more about that in a second. So on October 11th, we hired, I'm going to call them Rebus trainings because I don't have another name for it, but at least you'll know what I'm talking about. So we had these 4 consultants from the Rebus Associates, these Rebus trainers, and they provided professional development to our high school staff in the morning and to our middle school staff in the afternoon. So there was typically somewhere in the morning between 40 and 50 teachers were with a consultant. In the afternoon was more like 30 to 40 teachers with a consultant. So the Rebus Associates has developed a course for the Department of Education, and it's an online course, and they've developed a 2017 booklet that's coming out that has all these particular strategies written by teachers for teachers to help teachers with students in class. So over the course of the year, which started October 11th, some of those strategies were presented to the staff. We'd like to have a follow-up in January 17th, and maybe probably at the high school more so because of schedule during the release day. So we like to, in the meantime, train 15 of our teachers to be trainers as part of the trainer-trainers model, so that these folks, and they haven't been selected yet, and that's the next phase, will be trained over the course of the year so they can provide workshops for teachers, after-school trainings for teachers, be part of our professional development for teachers to sustain our effort for this year and the years to come. So just want to end, always want to thank people, want to thank the custodians for all their help, Donna Marshall, and a lot of other people, too many to mention. Right? When you put on Professional Development Day, everybody participates and helps out. Okay, thanks.
Any questions from the committee? Thank you very much. Acceptance of the minutes, September 27th, 2016.
Motion to,
I'm sorry, I was saving this for last because the principal is standing right in front of me. I failed to mention that in the morning session of October 11th, Principal Daniels, Brian Daniels, conducted a book study with his entire staff. Okay, and so he demonstrated great leadership. The feedback we got were teachers loved the book study, and so I just wanted to thank Brian in front of you for all of his hard work. Thank you. Thanks,
you.
Mayor.
motion to accept.
Motion made and seconded to accept as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Public participation. Any public participation? Public participation. Seeing none. MCAS delegate election. Entertain a motion. Who are you gonna nail?
Wait, what's going on? Oh, the delegate. You don't want to.
I'd like to make, we all knows. I'd like to make a motion to nominate Michelle Bodenhedinger as the delegate.
I don't mind doing it. Yeah, I don't mind doing it.
I'm like, you were last.
No idea what's going on here.
I don't mind doing it. I liked it last year.
I'll take a motion.
I mean, I'm gonna go anyway, so you
I
can do
did,
it, and I'll
but-
sit on the sides.
I made a motion, but you all didn't hear it because you were laughing too much.
You were laughing.
I made the motion. You heard it, right? Thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
Who is it?
That I did
Well,
say
she
MBH.
me, but it doesn't
But then
matter.
she kept on saying she would, so she could be alternative. And then they can switch whatever.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So,
Because you have to have
So
both.
I'd like
You
to
do have
make a
have an alternate
motion
as well, so.
for Michelle Bodenhedinger to be the delegate with Heidi Matthews as the alternate.
motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries.
That was evil.
Too funny. I missed that.
Resolutions.
So I guess we have to read them. You can read them.
You want me to read them?
Oh.
Resolution number 1, foundation budget. Whereas a special foundation budget review commission reported its recommendations in 2015, the general court and to the public. And whereas among the recommendations were those to calculate more accurately the costs of students in special education and health insurance costs for employees and retirees. And whereas several recommendations of the members of the committee to establish adequate and equitable funding for school districts remain unresolved. And whereas there remains a broad consensus that the overall calculations used to establish the foundation budget for city, town, and regional school districts remains significantly understated, and in the opinion of Mask and its members, violates the letter and spirit of the ruling of the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court in the 1993 McDuffie case. Therefore, be it resolved that Mass calls upon the legislature to enact the recommendations of the foundation budget into law, and further, that the legislature order the commission to reconvene in order to conduct further deliberations and make such recommendations as the FBRC may propose, and further, that the FBRC shall address and make recommendations towards the overall adequacy of the overall foundation budget. Well, no, usually we have the position for or against thing. That's
They
what I'm
don't
missing.
bother with that anymore. They only have one position. What's the consensus?
No, I think we're missing a piece, is the consensus.
Was this all of it that was in the book? Because I know you cut and pasted it. Do you have,
I have the book.
yeah, I did bring it with me.
I'm happy to pass it on. I don't see any more, but
Yeah, they may have
Do it.
not
Maybe
provided
they
it.
didn't. Let's see.
I mean, it's realistically a harmless, feel-good.
They don't like to think
Resolution.
it that way.
Mr.
Mayor, I just want to point out that the business managers has been very active with the Foundation Budget Review Committee, and while I appreciate their work, I don't know where the $2 billion is going to come from. That's my only issue with the Foundation Budget Review Committee.
Yeah, there's 4 resolutions. There's no opinion on either. Because usually there's a for and against opinion and what it'll, okay, so I guess we'll just,
Can you explain a little more about that $2 billion?
So what
that what you said?
what the
Yes.
Foundation Budget Committee has pointed out is that due to the fact that a lot of these costs have not had the appropriate inflations, that the foundation budget, which sets Chapter 70 for the state, is unfunded by more than $2 billion. So what they're asking is that the foundation budget itself is severely underfunded, and that the state needs to add in additional money to cover 2 major areas. One would be health insurance, the other would be special education costs for students with high needs. So those 2 areas are significantly underfunded in the foundation budget as opposed to other areas, and to fix that would require an enormous amount of tax to be added. It's
Resolution number 2.
Exactly. Yes.
But somewhere in their wild mind, they think a progressive tax in the state of Massachusetts is gonna bring in the additional money. All right, is there any motion? Are we not making a motion on resolution number 1?
So basically, what number 1 is asking is for for the legislature to enact.
A law.
Fully funded.
They want the state to
Well,
ante up.
Yeah, and, I don't think anybody realistically thinks that that's gonna happen at a tune of $2 billion. But, I mean, for years, people have been talking about taking a hard look at whether the foundation budget is meeting communities' needs. I mean, we don't have as big a problem.
We don't
with
have a
this.
seat at this table. I'm sorry, but we're not in a position where anyone else, most of the other communities are. So I don't even.
Right, but.
My feeling is if we want to pass on this resolution because we really don't have any skin in the game, then we pass on the resolution. I know we'll have more discussion on the next couple resolutions, but this one's, we don't have the issue like many communities.
But when you belong to an organization like MASC, you're not just in it for yourself, you're in it for the good of education for the state. And so just because it doesn't directly affect us as much as it does other communities, doesn't mean it's not something worth supporting.
But wouldn't that be the same argument for the charter schools, that we should be supporting the public schools, children in the charter school? If you're gonna use that argument?
But that's apples and oranges.
Oh.
What we're talking about right now, that's another question. I mean, that's a legitimate
Yeah,
question.
but you just said
but
that we're
it's not
supporting
same
the
thing.
organization of all the people in the state.
We're talking about supporting the organization of MASC. That's what I'm talking about. This is an MASC resolution. It's not a ballot initiative. This
Right.
is an MASC resolution.
Okay,
You
go
can
ahead.
vote against it if you choose to.
Okay.
That's why we have 7 votes.
I'd like to make a motion to go in favor of supporting this resolution from moving forward on discussion.
Motion made and seconded to support the resolution. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Number 2.
do you want me to read the whole thing? Resolution number 2, tax reform ballot question. Whereas there is a clear need to invest in our state's educational, social, and infrastructure systems, and whereas the need to rebuild our roads and bridges, strengthen public education, and provide the necessary support to help ensure social and economic equity for the residents of Massachusetts, and whereas a reasonable solution could be a combination of tax reforms and measures of accountability to establish a more equitable source for revenue and a more effective way of measuring our success. And whereas net income growth over the past decade has demonstrated a disproportionately lower tax burden as a share of net income upon high-wage earners without a current tax system that is asked of economically disadvantaged and middle-class families. And Whereas advocates for social and economic equity are considering seeking to ask voters to amend the Constitution of the Commonwealth to allow for greater tax equity that will not raise taxes on any but the wealthiest residents of Massachusetts. Whereas the Foundation Budget Review Commission recommended additional revenue and securing a more equitable distribution of those funds, and now therefore be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees explore ways to promote social and economic equity through a ballot initiative whose purpose may include a state constitutional amendment, tax reform, protection of the state's neediest residents of all ages, and seeks additional revenue only from tax reform affecting the state's wealthiest residents. Further, that the goal of such a ballot referendum would be to secure a stronger financial base to underwrite needed improvements in the infrastructure of the Commonwealth, as well as the educational, social, and economic well-being of its residents.
What's the pleasure?
Mike, does Masbo have an opinion on this one?
Not on this one.
The accountants make that much money.
My only 2 cents on this is, I would completely support this, not the first part, but the second part, in having a tiered tax system in Massachusetts, if it was a 3-line tax return, where it said,
Mr.
take your
Accountant.
federal tax, multiply it times a number, and that's your final tax. But they'd mess around with it and screw around. I've talked to legislators, I've talked to speakers over the years that I would support a graduated tax if it was 3 simple lines on a tax return. But they would never do that. They'd stop messing around with these stupid little deductions they have for the tolls and the rental deduction and these little things that are virtually meaningless to anyone, but they feel good when they pass them. Virtually everyone in the state pays 5% of what they earn, and that's it, approximately. But we have the opportunity now, anyone that would like to pay more, there's a checkoff box where you can pay a different rate. I believe they have something like 1,000 residents, 1,000 taxpayers that check it off every year. I don't remember exactly how many it is, but it's not very many. Like I said, the legislature would muck it up and they'd start a whole new tax program as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know, I haven't seen the number in years, so I don't even believe taxing certain people a certain amount and getting up to federal levels would bring in enough money to plug the hole they're looking for. Well, we have a deficit this year and we're not adding the $2 billion to the foundation budget.
Well, is it my understanding that this is just a vote to ask them to go to the legislature to ask for a ballot question?
No, this would take a charter change. This is a constitutional amendment.
No. But what they're asking for, it's just, so
But
it's,
it would be a constitutional amendment to allow, we are not allowed to have a,
change in the tax.
that's correct.
Right, so this is just.
Asking for conversation
It's
and
right,
exploring
it's to ask for the
opportunities.
process to be done, which is.
Right, the MASC explore ways to promote.
Yeah, so this is just
Be
does somebody
through-
want to start spinning their wheels to try and get something done?
You know, MASC supports school committees, but a big part of what they do is lobbying,
Right.
basically.
That's what they are.
So the purpose of these initiatives is to give the lobbyist in this organization direction on, they're going to go and talk to the legislature anyways. So that's what they come up with these resolutions, to give them direction on what their goals for the year should be. So this one happens to be on budget.
The way this is worded on here, it's not very specific as to what they're going to try to do. It says to explore, but then it says, which may include a state constitutional amendment, tax reform. It's very, very general.
I think it's to start the
Yes.
conversation.
I don't know what the point is of
Tax reform.
supporting it or not supporting it if it's that general.
Well, I think this resolution is about tax reform. So they're going to go and talk and figure out what possible ramifications of tax reform.
When I'm there, I'll suggest Arthur's way of taxation and see if,
The 3-line.
the 3-line.
Like I said, I support that. People are confused by the Massachusetts tax return. It has all these crazy lines in it that don't do very much. There's not a lot of deductions in it.
Nope.
You know, it's just a mess. And
Are
if they
other
would.
states easier? Like, are we,
Well,
are
actually,
ours harder? I
in
don't
all,
know.
in all transparency, I believe it was Rhode Island a few years ago went from that simple system of 3 lines. They wanted to generate more money, so they started messing around with it. But all you have to do to generate more money is, instead of charging 23% tax on your federal tax, charge 25% on the federal tax. But the legislature's not gonna wanna raise that 23%. They're gonna wanna find other ways to bring in the additional 2%. So I just, not real confident that we would see the product we're looking for at the end of this. And the chances of getting a constitutional convention to change it will all be long out of here.
While I don't disagree with some of your thought process, to me, I look at this and going, no harm having the discussion, because you don't bear any changes if you don't go ahead and try and have the discussion. So while this isn't really committing to any set thing, to me, it's just, I think, to Michelle's point, saying that we support MASC, get out there and start the conversation of something needs to happen. Special education students are still going to be at the schools and are going to need to be funded. And I completely hear what you're saying, so I don't disagree with it, but to me, I think it's kind of like no harm to go out and ask the questions. Shocker, isn't it? But I would say that.
Mike, so you said MASBO is not taking a stand on this per se, just probably a little too political for their palates, but
Yeah, I think on the first one, the foundation budget review, they've done a lot of work on that, and they support that. But I think when it comes to taxation, I think they leave that to the legislature.
agreed. And so, but they do in some ways go hand in hand. I mean, there's got to be some mechanism for funding the deficits that have been growing over time, or at least stop the bleeding, in some way or another. So do they come up with any other suggestions if they don't want to touch tax reform? Do they have are there other conversations about, okay, now we agree that the foundation budget needs to be looked at? Do they have any?
I think the elephant in the room is they understand that it has to come from taxation. But then that discussion is very different between the 351 different communities that MASBO we're a part of.
Sure.
The taxation from the different cities and towns is a lot different. Some of the cities and towns, their entire school budget is made up of strictly Chapter 70 funds. Some districts get almost nothing in Chapter 70 funds, and their town funds the entire thing. So when we get into a discussion about the state versus local taxes, a lot of the times they leave that as the bigger issue for the legislature to handle, whereas they're just saying, all we're trying to do is point out that we have a systematic problem with the way we fund public schools.
Yeah.
And the way that these specific line items in the foundation budget have not increased over time with the same inflation that they actually have, the actual costs have increased. So we tend to stay away from these types of things, because although it would be great for us to say, yes, we need more tax revenue, I think it might fall on deaf ears if a bunch of business managers get together and say, we'd love more tax revenue. We know. I think people understand that.
Yeah.
So.
Got it. Thank you.
So I will make a motion to support the resolution to spur the
Says that.
conversation. Yeah, to spur the conversation.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Wait a minute, I gotta change my number.
No, didn't carry.
4-3.
Denise was opposed, right?
You were opposed?
Yeah.
I apologize.
3-4.
Not, it was opposed.
Okay.
That's okay. Resolution number 3. Excuse me. Charter school reform. Whereas the possibility of the expansion of Commonwealth charter schools in Massachusetts poses a threat to the ability of public school districts to provide services to the children of the Commonwealth. And whereas in many cities and towns, Commonwealth charter schools are imposed upon communities over their objections and without regard to the impact such a charter school would have on the education of children in the public schools. And whereas without substantial reform of Commonwealth charter school financing, recruitment of students, accurate, unduplicated, and students who are no longer seeking to enroll but are alleged to be on charter school waiting lists, equitable charter school enrollment of representative segments of the population of economically disadvantaged, special education, and disabled students, remediation of the adverse impact of charter school expansion cannot be addressed. And whereas these circumstances would be exacerbated by the approval by voters of a proposed ballot initiative to expand charter schools and to circumvent such safeguards as would address several of the inequities arising out of the expansion of charter schools in Massachusetts. Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees urge the citizens of the Commonwealth to reject such a ballot initiative, and further, that Mass seek legislative approval of a comprehensive set of reforms that includes, number 1, establishment of strict guidelines or regulations to require that charter schools represent cross-sections of students residing within the school service areas. 2, reporting of accurate numbers of students who leave charter schools to return to the sending districts or districts of residence. 3, requiring the Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to retain and report accurate data on enrollment of students with learning disabilities, physical disabilities, economic disadvantage, emotional disability, and status as racial and linguistic minorities. 4, state requirements that any charter school authorized in a community without its consent be funded in full by the Commonwealth rather than by expropriation of Chapter 70 education aid from the sending cities, towns, and regions. And number 5, state funding in full of any mitigation funds created to offset the loss of state funding for students who become students in charter schools. Any discussion?
Make a motion for it.
Motion to support the resolution.
Motion made and seconded to support the resolution. Any discussion? Ms. Hennessy.
Thank you. I guess when you all are there, I would love to hear that there's a little bit more strength to when they're looking for getting accurate numbers, because unfortunately, I think numbers in their reporting concerns me. If it's not done at least multiple times throughout the year, you know, like a temperature in the fall, a temperature in the spring, something like that, because there are kids that are coming and going throughout the school year, and so taking it one point in the year, I think is concerning in some ways. As we already know from some of our discussion earlier this spring, there are definitely enrollment issues that currently Department of Ed is still not keeping a close eye on some of the enrollment numbers across the state charter schools currently. So that would be my hope, is that there's a little bit more discussion about putting lines in the sand.
Noted.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Mike, you might have the answer to this. So, in kind of piggybacking what Catherine just said, if somebody, so October 1st numbers are October 1st numbers, whether it's a charter school or traditional.
They've redone that for charter schools. So now they take the numbers on October 1st. They also take them in February, so they get a more accurate count over time. And the way that the funding comes is it's an offset to the cherry sheets. The cherry sheets are how the city gets their funding from the state. So what they do is they make an estimate in October, they get their figures, and then in February, they get their second set of enrollment figures, and then revise the estimate and either lower the payments to the town or increase the payments to the town. So if students leave after October 1st, there's now a process in place to allow the towns to recoup the money if students have left.
If they've left the charter school and come back to the public school.
Yes.
Or vice versa, is it vice versa or no?
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
Well, no, but if, do they check public school enrollment as well in February? or are they just checking the charter school? So if our enrollment
They're
increased.
checking our enrollment every day.
Oh, okay,
We send our data every single day to the Department of Education.
okay,
Yeah.
that answered that. Okay.
But noted, that's not the case with the charter school. They have the 2 times of reporting
The
currently.
2 times the reporting is for
Right.
Chapter 70 and all those other types of
Right,
funding
exactly.
mechanisms, yep. But they're looking at it for tuition purposes. So when they're doing those 2 times per year to look at the enrollment, they're doing it strictly for tuition purposes.
For Chapter 70.
And what they're looking to see if there's been an increase or decrease in total population, so that way they can send the correct tuition bill to the city or town.
And when they're doing those numbers, though, they're looking at each child and which community they're coming from. Because if, a Marlborough student leaves in January and comes back and they backfill it, even though they're not supposed to, with a kid that's from the waiting list from Shrewsbury, then they figure that all out because they're identifying each student with the community that they're coming from.
Mike, you just said we send the data for enrollment on a daily basis. Does that include demographics in our case?
It's almost every data field that we have in Aspen. It's called the State I'm going to get this wrong, State Interoperability Framework, SIF. And what happens is we have a way that we can communicate all of our student data with the state on a daily basis, but we still do our reporting, like October 1st reporting, we still do that as part of this process for us to get a review of all the data and make sure that we agree that this is what we're sending to the state.
Are charter schools not required to do
I
that?
can't speak to that because I
Okay,
don't.
I didn't know if you
yeah.
knew.
Unfortunately, I don't know if they do that.
Well, like I said before, I don't support this, and if it's all about money, we get a bigger bite taking out directly out of our city budget from a regional school than we do the charter school. If it's about money, we should be fighting to get a separate Chapter 70 line item for charter schools and let them be on their own completely.
None of us are disagreeing with that.
100%.
But it's better to throw mud at everything, so that's what we're doing here. But like I said, the regional school, new communities come in, I have no say. They can go up 5, 10, 15% of their budget. I have 1 out of 7 votes. I pay 50% of the bills, and I have 15% of the say. And that's a much better chunk, but there's so many involved in the MASC that we're not gonna take shots at them. So,
Well, I think one of the big differences between those Voc schools and a charter school is the Voc schools have a school committee that is elected by the
Yeah.
communities to provide oversight, and the charter schools don't. So if community dollars are going to a Voc school that does have public oversight, I don't have as much of a problem with that.
but it's our representation is 1 out of 7. So, and
Correct,
we,
but-
if we paid, and like I've said before, we should have held out in supporting their new school until we had a proportionate vote. We didn't. We wanted to support the school. We have a lot of children over there. They put out great kids. It's a great facility, but we should have a proportionate say on what we're paying. Between us and Hudson, we pay 75% of the bills, and we have 2 out of 7 votes. So,
But-
like I
But
said,
isn't that a conversation to have with the school committee representative that,
no.
from Marlborough
it's a
that represents the?
It's a state
It's a
issue.
state
It's not,
issue.
No, I know, but it's something that, I know that other regional schools have redistributed their,
which, why would a community like Boylston that
I-
has 5 kids there and, doesn't have to pay very much,
correct.
gonna worry about it? They have
Right.
the same say I do,
Yeah.
so they're not gonna give it up. The
That
only way
doesn't
they
seem
would have
fair.
given up is if,
No, that doesn't seem fair, but that,
and like I said, the only way we would have gotten it is to hold the
Said
money
no.
up for the school, but we didn't wanna do that, but I think everyone knows where everyone stands on this question, so.
okay, well, motion to support, resolution number 3.
Any further discussion?
Before we leave this, I just would like to say, I think your point's very valid in regards to the representation and the validity towards how much money is being spent, and the representation needs to be equal to that. So I would suggest that maybe that's something where we look at moving forward a resolution to MASC for discussion around that point, because we can't be the only community that's involved with a regional VOTEC school in this situation. So I think your point's really valid. I can't say that I know that much about across the state to be able to pursue it immediately, but I think what you've just presented is exceptionally valid, and maybe that's something where we need to then take a stand and move forward a potential resolution for support. So
next time, yeah.
I've heard that before, and I think that, you know, why not see if we can work down that path, because I think it's very valid. So although it's separate from what we're voting on, since you brought it up in the conversation, I didn't want to leave the conversation without suggesting that we look at that.
And the last point on that, it is in very, very beginning discussions, but there are concern with some communities that additional funding and grants and monies are going to the vocational schools, and they're getting out of the original business they were in, which was the trade business. They were the schools that were taking some kids that needed some different direction, that needed a different avenue to go into different vocations and trades. We all know how short we are on finding tradesmen throughout the state, and they're going away from that and putting big feather in their caps about where their kids are graduating and going off to college with. And it's you know, so it's changed, it's beginning discussions, but we need to have avenues for all kids, and you know, I don't know if we have that, but it'd be a great discussion to have. But on that, any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion to approve, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries.
No surprise on that vote.
Nope.
Number 4.
Resolution number 4, excuse me, social and emotional well-being of students. Whereas various factors, including the impact of poverty, family status, other social issues, and academic pressures have contributed to a marked increase in the levels of stress and anxiety among students at all grades, and whereas the expansion of standardized testing to a wider range of students and these tests to establish ratings for schools and districts has contributed to the growing concern among educators that students are exhibiting complications of adding stressful factors to their lives both inside and outside of school, and whereas advocates for students, including school committee members, school leaders, teachers, and parents, have identified that an effective strategy for children is to address social and emotional learning, SEL, by various tactics, and whereas in response to the demand for SEL, initiatives have been organized by several stakeholder groups, including a collaboration of MASC, MIAA, MSSAA, MESPA, MOEC, and Teachers 21. In addition, a separate working group within MASS to identify available resources, new strategies, and tactics to promote the social and emotional well-being of children. Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees shall be directed to deploy such resources of the association independently and in collaboration with other organizations to gather resources, identify strategies, and improve public awareness of the importance of addressing student social and emotional well-being, and further that MASC shall give consideration to such public policy initiatives that prioritize action by stakeholders and stakeholder groups in collaboration with expert behavioral and healthcare providers as the most effective entities for addressing strategies that are in the best interests of children.
What would be the argument against it?
I'm trying to figure out, it sounds like they want more organizations to join, to get more input on issues, so we have to do more policies and set in more controls.
I think it's trying to combine resources across the board to support kids emotionally, because if we don't do that, they're not going to succeed academically. I don't see any, I think a lot of this is already happening.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
It is. Yep.
Any input from our leaders?
totally support this. This is occurring right now with all of the superintendent conferences I've gone to. It's the hot topic of the past few years. I think it's just, again, deploying resources to look at this as another strategy that our academic emphasis has been fine in Massachusetts, but that we haven't kept up with the social emotional side of it. So I don't think there's harm to this, in my opinion.
So, motion to support resolution number 4.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? I don't know what more we can do. I'm sorry. I mean,
Well, but that's why they're looking at MIAA. Maybe there are things within their realm. You know, it's looking at,
MIA won't sit at the table with them.
well, no, I'm
Mr.
just
Walter.
saying. What would you like to say, Mark?
I agree, yeah, well, no surprise where I stood on 2 and 3, right?
Right.
You know, I understand a lot of this is being done already, but I get very uneasy when I see an alphabet soup of organizations and boards and individuals coming together to study something, because invariably what occurs is you get a whole slew of directives or regulations or even statutory requirements that try to implement statewide a one-size-fits-all bunch of solutions. And that's my only concern. I'm not against studying and addressing the social and emotional well-being of our students. I understand the importance of that, but I almost I'm just really leery. Anytime all of these groups get together and issue studies, it's invariably we're all given the same marching orders, and what may work in Boston may not work in Marlborough. What may work in Worcester may not work in Auburn. So I don't know. I'm torn on this one, but you know, I can understand the desire to study the issues, but I'm just concerned on the back end what we're told to do after the studying is done.
That'll be next year's resolution.
exactly.
So I'm going to suggest we stay the course here in Marlborough. We learn, we take what we want to take from the best sources, but I think I'll vote against this, not because I'm against the social and emotional well-being of our students, but because I think we can do what needs to be done in Marlborough without needing a bunch of national or state-level organizations telling us how to do it going forward and imposing more mandates and more programs that are only going to continue to cost money and are going to continue to drain money away from the core function of the district, which is to educate kids. So that's my $2.
Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? All those opposed? That one I couldn't figure out.
I have to say,
It was going.
my observation in my 5-6 year, or my 6th one this will be, the fact that there's only 4 resolutions this year.
Yeah,
They're
that's-
only by mass. There's no school committee that put forth anything.
Right. No.
No, that
This is it.
This is it, right.
Yeah.
It's because the state only has one issue these days.
Well, and really 2 of the 4 are issues that are gonna be addressed anyhow.
Anyways.
Yeah,
Good job.
thank you.
Mr. Daniels?
Thank you for the invitation, and before I start to talk about enrichment, I wasn't going to have Tim stay so I could add my congratulations, but just a note, he is a member of the most outstanding art department that any school could imagine. These 4 people do incredible work, and I don't know if you heard him talking about consulting with the core teachers. One of the things that this schedule that we have adopted this year allows for, and in part in answer to Ms. Hennessy's question about training, is intensive time with teachers to plan and to create. And we've taken the first step towards eliminating the term core, where everything that we do has value. And we don't differentiate between the core and the rest. So we've stopped referring to our non-core teachers as related arts or a secondary piece. So congratulations to Tim, very well deserved, and to the entire department that he acknowledged supports him. Thank you, Mark, for kind words about the morning workshop. The book Engaging Students is a wonderful investment on the part of the district. And while the title includes the word poverty, it really is about good practice. And that's what our school goals are about at Whitcomb this year. Our focus, if our practice is good, every student comes along. English language learners, as well as students who live in poverty. And I think the reason that the book study was so successful, and we're committed to studying that book together throughout the year, is because it's packed full of meaningful, helpful things that can be used immediately, leads to good, strong conversation. So it's an investment that I very much appreciate, and appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with the faculty. So grade 6 enrichment. There we go, still working. In the prior schedule that we had, there was a intervention block which froze the entire school so that certain services as well as opportunities could be offered. The scheduling committee looked at that time, that 40 odd minutes, in which about 25% of the students were deeply involved in something, and the other 75%, and that would apply that to grades 6, 7, and 8, were much less productive. And thought that this was time that needed to be poured back into more productive, more teacher-directed time, if we could find ways to offer the other services, provide the other services and opportunities, which with some compromises, I think we have managed to do. The other thing is middle schools have had a very hard time of finding a way to do tier 2 interventions in a team model. It works wonderfully in elementary school in the self-contained classroom, but has been very difficult for middle schools to do without taking students out of instruction. So we're trying to catch up on something while we're missing what today's lesson is. So what this schedule allows us to do is to offer targeted intervention, and the first priority in deciding what students do during this block that shows up 6 out of every 7 days, as every class does, is to provide that intervention in ELA and mathematics in approximately 6-week cycles, so students don't get pulled permanently into a program, but can fill the hole that they need to fill, address whatever needs to be addressed, and go back in to whatever else, what the other students are doing, so that new students can join them. And of course, they can also re-enroll for a second 6-week cycle. So it is, I'm rather proud of the fact that we're taking a shot at truly doing the intervention model, and while maintaining a team-based middle school design. While those students who are identified, and we'll take a look at how they're identified in a moment, are in these intervention times, the other students are given teacher-directed opportunities that they have a choice of from all of the teachers who are involved in the team. So this is where this schedule allows for all those core teachers, as well as all of the other related arts folks, to offer opportunities to students, not just to cover a classroom, but to do something that's clearly defined, and that students have an opportunity to choose going in. And this replaces the previous academic support block. So small groups of students work with the ELA or math teachers for 2 days out of the 6-day cycle. So one of the things that we know about intervention is if you need ELA intervention, you most often also need math intervention. Not always, but most often. So the 2-day cycle in very small groups gives a student an opportunity to do both, which is another challenge in the prior system where they may have had an opportunity to do one, but rarely both, and also to offer academic support services. The placement's based on Park Data, FastBridge, which we have extended training across all the grade levels. Grade 8 is finishing that up in the next couple of weeks, so we now have available FastBridge data at the 5th grade and the 6th grade level, and we'll have it in another 2 weeks for 7 and 8 as well. So this is another great data point. We're not just dependent on a single state test. Students have the opportunity to cycle out after 6 weeks, as I mentioned, so there's a review. A student isn't there forever. And great plus, kids who get pulled for intervention, for mediation, often are pulled out of permanently or for the long term, out of the general population and miss out on what those other opportunities are. This schedule allows them, even if they are getting intervention in ELA and math, to still have 2 days in a 6-day cycle to do one of the choices that that are offered to them. They don't have the opportunity to take any one of them because some of them require daily attendance, but others are purposely designed so that a student can come in for 2 days and not be dependent on what happened yesterday or tomorrow. So the enrichment class selections. The Unified Arts teachers are assigned to each team for a trimester. So those folks, they work on a grade level, and then the grade level is broken down. We did try to do it as the entire grade level, but the logistics of figuring out where to place 300 kids was just a little bit too overwhelming. So we're sticking with a team, but then the Unified Arts teachers will rotate around. So over the year, whatever offerings that they're bringing to the table will show up in all 3 teams before the year is over. So every student will have the opportunity to choose every one of the Unified Arts teachers, and they have the full services all the time of their team-based teachers. Every student was shown the list and had an explanation of what the choices were, and then asked to rank order their choices. Every student received their first or second choice with the exception of 2 students, both of whom were consulted about future choices, and it was explained to them that the opportunity to do it later in the year would be there, but because of other things they needed, ELA or math intervention, that on this round they would have to go with their third choice, but that's just 2 students. So the offerings that are currently there, and these are general descriptions. The physical education department, wellness folks are offering a variety of things. Not all of these choices are available to every team, because as I mentioned, these teachers are rotating. But over the year, they all will be available to every team. Yoga, mindfulness, Olympic Games, a fit club, a walking club, a leisure sports and games group. A practice club, which the music department is offering, where students can work on their instrumental skills. Geography, using art and technology to explore people and places. Terrarium building, making in the maker space, and we have currently a 5th grade teacher who's working on a grant project that's very exciting for makerspace materials. Have had early conversations. Tom Platier is working on expanding makerspace opportunities using our library space. So we're definitely moving, and that will grow as the year goes on. Genetics with snakes, I will make no comment. Focused on this particular trimester, presidential election. mask making, and search and scent, learning about search dogs. The part of what the teachers were asked to do during the first few weeks of school is to think about what they are passionate about and thus would like to teach. And it did not have to, in this first round, be necessarily directly related to their area of curriculum, believing that if they were passionate about it, bringing it to students, that would build student passion as well. Also, pause lessons are being delivered during this block as well, and in one of the great pluses, fast bridge testing, for instance, to do a class takes a class period. That's out of the 180, now we have 179 days of instruction and 1 day of testing. All of those kinds of tests, we can't do it with our state tests, but all of that kind of work, and fast bridge is 3 times a year, will happen during this enrichment block, and there'll be no core instruction lost in order to achieve that data collection. So that's the system as it is working. I want to thank Hannah Tola, put my name on the front of this. She is the 6th grade teacher leader and is responsible for organizing and delivering the schedule for this. So I'm in her debt tonight, and I have her slides despite her putting my name on them. I appreciate that. But we were laughing, talking, going through this together this afternoon, and wondering if when they're 7th graders, will they rebel because this isn't available. This period fills up with world language, so that's where that time goes. So I'm happy to take questions.
Questions for the committee? Ms. Hennessy.
Thank you. You mentioned the FastBridge assessments. Last I thought I had understood, I thought you all were moving forward with math, and ELA was not happening yet for FastBridge. Are they both on the same track now? And
we're training on the same track, yep.
They are, across all grades, but 5, 6 right now is ahead of 7, 8?
Yes.
Okay, and 7, 8 will then be meeting by springtime?
Prior to that. We're in the middle of training now. So the teachers are all being trained, and we'll then go into a testing cycle so we get a fall data point.
So then the data points from the 4th graders from last year are moving up to
Yes.
the 5th grade? Okay. Okay. Question, because we had a lot of conversation last spring about music, and I guess there were some concerns that some of the community members had brought forward about time for different grade levels to have concert time together. So I'm just curious where I'm not seeing music kind of integrated in here as a potential option. And I'm wondering if that's something that you all are going to be bringing in at some point. It seemed like there had been some concerns of when there were going to be opportunities of some overlapping of some music. And I'm just curious, I'm not seeing that on here.
Oh, well, there is the instrument rehearsal time, and
Right.
the music department, they all participate in this. They are bringing the courses that they design and see an opportunity to work with students. This wasn't designed to add an additional course or an additional. There would be students who might choose to do one of these that would have nothing to do with the music department.
Right. How many students are actually able to get the intervention? So you were talking about smaller amounts of students. So what are those small amounts of students that are actually reaching and getting the intervention? Only, out of curiosity, because there's some kids I'm envisioning that may need some intervention that may not necessarily hit some of the benchmarks. So how are we determining those numbers, and what are those numbers?
Well, we're determining the numbers using the data points that are mentioned here in the slideshow: MCAS testing, current grades, FastBridge, then prioritizing students who need intervention the most. Because they have this intervention twice in a cycle, there's an opportunity. We try to keep the groups between 6 and 10. One of the things we know about intervention is that small group is what they need so that the teacher has the opportunity to find what are those holes. Where's the spot that didn't get connected at some other time? And that's been one of the problems with our fairly large, occasionally too large, special education pullout groups, where we're trying to intervene with up to 15 kids at a time. So this is designed around 6 to 10, but in the cycle, 3 of those can meet on a team because it's 2 days. So 30 students at a time in a 6-week cycle could be serviced in a much more intense small group.
So 30 kids out of how many is your group? I'm trying to understand the percentage of children that we're actually providing the intervention for.
Oh, of students, what percentage of students would need an intervention?
30
over?
out of a team.
Well, the team, the grade level is 320, but 320 students don't require intervention.
Right.
We might be.
So it's
I'd
30
have to
out of
estimate.
320.
It's 30 in ELA, and it would be an additional 30 in math in a 6-week period. So then it may be those same 30 again, in all likelihood not. Some different students, some will stay. So those groups are going to evolve. Students who need intervention, this is an estimate of probably about 80 students at a grade level. So 60 of those, if 80 is an accurate number, 60 of those 80 in a 6-week period would be potentially serviced.
And as far as the data points that you're using, if they are meeting, they fall within a needs improvement?
Yes.
Or, so anyone that would fall within needs improvement then kind of gets pulled to the side and given the opportunity for the intervention somewhere during that period?
Right, but those are prioritized. We don't want to use PARC or MCAS as a sole data point. So FastBridge and what they're currently doing in class, and then prioritizing based on those who need the most are going to get the most attention and the most time.
So how are we capturing the ones that maybe are not the priority, but the middle? How are we getting them the intervention then?
Well, as we roll through the year and students are able to move out, then we're able to bring those students in.
Okay.
And of course, go back to the basics. Good instruction in the classroom is still going to be the key. So we're not remediating, we're remediating less. And if teachers are more focused and differentiating on individual needs in the classroom, those students who are on the edge are a couple points away from a acceptable proficiency are most likely the ones who would be able to be helped in a larger group.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Walter?
Brian, with respect to the children that cycle out after 6 weeks, do we provide them with a heightened or more frequent monitoring program to make sure that they continue with their improvement?
Well, one of the nice, the FastBridge data points will give us 3 data points a year rather than just waiting for one large at the end of the year. They're ongoing grades, and as we expand and emphasize the use of Aspen Gradebook, and as teams, because of the collegial time that teachers have, there's more conversation on team about which students need what and when. Students go through cycles, much like adults. Some kids are very slow starters, and some kids are slow finishers. So the team, those 6 to 8 teachers who work with them, know them best and can see those patterns. And then in this system, because of the flexibility, I mean, a student can be taken out of one of their choice. If they suddenly, fractions has just been impossible to get. So you come out of the group that you wanted to take. We're going to miss a couple yoga classes. We're going to pop you into that math intervention. Oh, there's the fraction problem you don't understand, whatever it might be. Fix that, go back.
Okay, so there will be a set of eyes on the kids that cycle out, just making sure that
Absolutely.
they will continue their improvement, and then if they need additional intervention, they can be put back into the program.
One of the things about these interventions, it's not looked at as a on-off switch.
Yep.
It doesn't fix everything, doesn't intend to. On the other hand, it doesn't label you forever.
Sure. Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Okay, I have two quick operational report items, if I
You're not
might.
going to read a book, are you?
No, I promise. I know you enjoyed it, though. Just part of the, starting tomorrow, no student schedule is going to change, but we have spent countless hours rebalancing the wellness PE classes to get better numbers. One of the unforeseen results of the new schedule and trying to make as much of the music happen as possible resulted in some really difficult, a lot of moving parts to kids who are taking 4 PEs or 2 PEs, and then on different days. So to balance all those numbers, we've worked very hard. So some students will see a change in teacher starting tomorrow, but no change in their schedule. They'll be going to the same places in the same time, but the teacher there, and it's also honoring certification limits. So that hopefully will take care of what was some unbalanced classes, although we were pretty good in numbers, but now we're much more even across the team. And the other thing, and I'm glad Ms. Patel is here, since we spent a little bit of time this afternoon on this problem, we reserve one of the teams at each grade level for our English learners, and we purposely try to under-enroll that team in September, knowing that that group is most likely to grow. So we are at October, mid-October, and we have overfilled our 8th grade team already. And we'll have to, the only solution we have at the moment is to spread onto a second team, which makes delivering services, because our personnel is based on being able to do this in one team. And what Rupal and Erin Casey, Danielle Martins have worked very, very hard to address this problem. And of course, it's a moving target. As we said today, we have 3 new students, and it was only Tuesday. First, I thought it was Wednesday, but no, it's only Tuesday. And of course, we don't know. It could be still 3 come Friday, or it could be whatever. So just to let the committee know that we are facing very fast-growing numbers in that area.
Tennessee.
Sorry, on the information about the wellness classes that are being balanced, honestly, that's excellent news to hear. What are the class sizes that we're targeting then, now?
Well, we set off, we're high, about 35, and we're, on one side or the other of that, we did start off with, and part of this is the right hand and the left hand guidance making changes that students or parents asked for. That when we rolled the schedule out in August, we were pretty much at that 32, 34 level across. But those changes that went in didn't take into consideration the enrollment in those courses. That's where we jumped up into the 39s, 40, and need to pull those back.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess the contract isn't quite ready yet,
No.
so we're going to skip that. So acceptance of donations and gifts, MA, DESC, FY17 Title II-A grant, $143,901.
Motion to accept.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. MA, DESC, FY17 Early Childhood Special Education Entitlement Grant, 262, $67,497.
Motion to accept.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Reports of subcommittees. Any reports? Yes.
Well, I don't know if I'm a subcommittee now, but I'll report out the warrant since I was charged with that duty. Nobody sent me any questions, but I did meet with Mike yesterday and reviewed my questions, since I always have questions on it, and was satisfied with his answers.
Very good. To protecting the the school system in
Yes.
The integrity of the
Integrity.
financial systems.
Marlborough. Any other reports of committees? Seeing none. Members forum. Any members want to be formed? Ms. Bowden
I
Henninger.
just would like, not really a committee, but a update on the hiring process for our administrative assistant. Can we have an update? Are you having interviews?
We had interviews?
3 candidates.
Ah,
I apologize. We interviewed 3 candidates yesterday? Was it yesterday?
great, okay.
And there was a clear consensus as to our top choice, and I believe references are being checked, and we hope to make an offer imminently,
Excellent.
as in by the end of the week.
Fantastic.
Splendid. Thank you.
Any other members?
Bless you.
Bless you. Any other members? Seeing none.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.